discussion session. Let's move to the second speaker, Lee Kean Yu. Okay.
Can you hear me? Good morning, everyone. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Lee Kean Yu, and thanks for the invitation from the organizer to invite me to give a talk. Okay, basically, I will introduce myself. Okay, my name is John Lee Kean Yu. I'm one of the associate researchers just appointed in the Malaysian Chinese Research Center. And my duty is to get known about Malaysian Chinese business studies, the development milestone, and the knowledge management among the Chinese family business. Okay, currently I need to say about my personal background. Many of you, maybe you think that my native language or my mother tongue will be English or Malay. But I sadly to say, my mother tongue during my childhood is my own dialect. That means you see, okay, most of the first generations Malaysian Chinese, they did immigrate from China to Malaysia. Okay, from China to Malaysia due to the Taiping rebellion in 18th century. I think most of the historians will know that, okay? And I even have a relative in China, Huizhou, and my dialect group is categorized as Hakka, okay, Hakka. So for your information, our Malaysian Chinese is divided into different Fangyan dialect group. We have a Cantonese, and we have Hokkien, and we have Hakka, Teochew, and even we have a Hinghua. Okay, if you think, okay, many of us will think that if you are the Chinese, and how you can survive, or how you can deal with Malaysia as one of the multiracial countries in Malaysia. Yes. And then I checked with all the Malaysia family business studies in Malaysia. I found out the two features that can unite us to perform the diversity, okay, the unity in diversity in that country. That is two items: cultural adaptability and how to adapt to the political changes. I even have ancestor clan, ancestor hall in Huizhou, and during Qingming, during our ancestor praying day or dome sweeping day, we will contact each other by using the social media, the WeChat to communicate with each other in our own dialect. So you can see that, okay, from my past studies, about 18 case studies of a Chinese family business in Malaysia, we found out some of the dialect group, they did dominate a certain industry. For example, the port trading industry, they did dominate by the Hokkien group of Chinese. And some of the restaurant, dim sum, and the cafe, they did dominate by all those Cantonese group of Chinese. And for the rubber industry, for other like tin mining industry, they also did occupied by all those Hakka merchants, but majority of these merchants belong to Hokkien. So I'm just promoted as one of the associate researcher, and I need to learn more from you all. So today I come up with my studies about the does undo three generations, because majority, if you refer to the family business review, most of the researchers will say that the Chinese family firms, it cannot last even the 3 generations. If you back to the family business scholars, the expert, the Gersey, they will say that the family business model that consists of the 3 features: family, business, and ownership. In here, in today's presentation, I will come out the 3 phenomena or the 3 thematic focus, that is enterprise development, tacit knowledge, and generational change in Malaysia Chinese family business. Okay, what are the key themes in my research topic? Basically, this Chinese family business model, I adopted from the family business expert Gersit network. The focus of, if you own the business, if you need to run the business well, you most probably you have three features: family, business, and the ownership. In here, the intersection point here, I put the role of the innovation, because the generational change, if we look at the generational change in the family business, we have a first, second, and the third generation. Every generation we did exhibit different managerial style, yes, and the leadership management style from one generation to another. It doesn't mean that the next generation will get known about the tacit knowledge transferring from one time to one time. It's very hard, because most of the second generation Malaysian Chinese family business, they will send their children to study abroad. Because our Chinese proverbs, we always say, 再穷也不能穷教育. In Mandarin, they say that whatever the poor it is, you still need to study hard, and you put all those determination in your work. Okay, the generational change, if you look at the first and second generation and the third generation, they did exhibit many characteristics. So when come to the knowledge transferring, we found out the tacit knowledge. The tacit knowledge, I have cited a lot of works that are written by the Japanese scholars in the knowledge management. Maybe some of you maybe know like Nonaka, and the other one is Aogi. And the most famous and the most pioneer of the ideology behind the tacit knowledge, that is the first pioneer ideas, came out by the Polanyi, the Hungarian economics. They will say that when come to the generational change, from one generation to another, we have a tacit knowledge, okay? Both of the founders, for example, if you study in the family business, we know that is the founders and the successor. The founder did inherit a lot of informal knowledge, whereby man knows more than he can tell, he can explain. That refers to the personal experience during the founder generations. So the harder way is, we quite difficult to transform the tacit to the codified knowledge. The codified knowledge in here is explicit knowledge in the written format or in the publication format, because as I mentioned earlier, men know that more he can tell. We have a lot of knowledge to run the business at the beginning during the first generation, but I need to transfer to the next generation. I'm facing a lot of dilemma or the challenges in running the business. So when come to the third one, the key features here, the enterprise development. Okay, for your information, during our former Prime Minister Mahathir administration, we very much focus into Look East policy. Look East policy in here, it doesn't mean that we follow the China or the East or other East countries. We follow Korean and Japanese way in doing business. So in the family business studies, if we look at the Chinese conglomerates group in Malaysia, we have a Sugar King, Emperor, Robert God family. Those of you maybe know the Shangri-La Hotel being built by the Robert God family, Robert God, Guo Henian, and we have Winston Tan family in the entertainment business, and the other one is your family, Yo Tiong Lai family, that's in the cement and concrete works. So if you see this kind of the Chinese conglomerates in Malaysia, the booming of the Chinese conglomerates in Malaysia is most influenced by the Korean, the chapel way, or Zabaizu or the Kerezo way. I think most of the Korean scholars will know what I mean. They're just like Samsung Electrical Communications, the Samsung company in Korea. And most of the Chinese family business, we focus in this kind of a development model in order to build up their business, But for your information, I did interview some of the first generations. They did receive a very minimum education. And most of them, they just responded to me. They say that we were not born into the silver spoon, and we were not born into the legendary successful businessman during our time. So you can say that most of the Chinese family business in the first generation, they started as a petite bourgeoisie. Okay, started as a petite bourgeoisie, petite capitalism. If you look at some of the scholars did mention, they start up with the small capital business. Okay, there used to be a laborer or the immigrant workers to work in the tin mining industry during the British colonial or even the rubber plantations. So they suffer, and most probably they need to move away from the hometown, the home parents in China, the push factor, because due to the I mentioned earlier, the Taiping redistributions, and they are migrated to our country, and they are work in the worst condition. So from that time point of view, their willingness to work up by their own, okay? As a Chinese proverb always say, 工字不出头. You work under one roof with other people, we guarantee no future. That is the high determinations to provoke this businessman, this merchant, to come up with their own business. They will start up, for example, today I will come up with 3 case studies, okay? They will come up with a small chicken farm, poultry farm, or the small shop business in order to accumulate the capital. And slowly, from year to year, from time to time, they will involve into the larger conglomerate groups in Malaysia. So the Chinese family business in Malaysia mostly, okay, I did mention earlier, 80% of a Malaysian business are family owned. Okay, this statistic actually, I got it from the SME corporations. And surprisingly, our Chinese population in Malaysia, only 23%. Okay, with Malay population is about 70%. But most of the Chinese business are dominated our national economics backbone. That means they are support our economics, mostly in the manufacturing sector. Okay, this statistic also came out from the PricewaterhouseCoopers, okay, the accounting firm. They also mentioned that most of the second generations in Malaysia, they will started to take over the business, roughly about 30%, but majority of them, I mean the founder, they still prefer their heirs, their successor to be the professionals, okay? Malaysia adopted a laissez-faire economic system that aimed to encourage foreign direct investment. Although we are considered a free economy system, but we still adapted the protection to the domestic trade, domestic trade with a government control. So we have our own national car, Proton, and we have our own products, food products. We have our own plastic or the rubbers, the main industrial sectors in our own countries. Okay, we have our own products in order to protect the local domestic trade. So Chinese family business in Malaysia, when we look at the cultural perspective, are theorized as a mainly concern with a dynastic roots. Dynastic roots, the mean that every generations, for example, in the ancient China, we had Ming dynasty, Qing dynasty. It's the same things apply to the Chinese family business. We have a different generation. We also have a different type of leadership or the management skill. Okay, the Chinese Malaysian are divided into the Fangyan Qun, okay, or dialect groups that I mentioned earlier. Some of the Chinese customs or textile knowledge are still widespread or even assimilated into other cultures today in Malaysia. I did interview some of the third and fourth generation of this business owner. I found out during the first generation, when the Malaysian Chinese, they came from China to Malaysia, at that time, they are more perform intra-ethnic business networking. I'm not sure whether you all heard about intra-ethnic. Okay, you just imagine, you just associated with intra-ethnic marriage. That means you marriage with the people with the same races. So mostly during the first generations, Chinese business, okay, the forming of Chinese business, they only deal with Chinese. And then the suppliers, if you study their client side, the supplier side, and from A to Z, from bottom to up, and from the low involvement to the high involvement, everything in Chinese, and also belongs to the same ethnic group, same dialect group. That means Hakka, they only deal with the Hakka merchants. Hokkien only deal with the Hokkien merchant. But as time goes by, in order, we came out a lot of the public policy, for example, new economic policy, industry master plan in our country, in order to restructuring the income imbalance between Malay and Chinese. And for your information, most of the Malaysian Chinese are staying in the urban area, whereby the Malays, the native group will stay in the always stay in the urban area. So from this kind of the policy, we encourage more of the Malays of Bumiputra to come out from the rural area, the villages, and to work in the country by providing them more job opportunities to them. Most of the Malays and the colleagues, okay, they prefer to work in the government sector. So some of the Chinese business work also need to play well or work well with all those Bumiputra. We call it Malay, the Bumiputra, the Malay elite, in order to get a contract. This kind of the business relation, we call it the Sino Bumiputra partnership or Alibaba partnership. In order, if you want to get a mega project from the government, you need to work well with the politicians. For example, some of the big conglomerates companies, you need to appoint some of the Malay directors, the executive director in the companies in order to get the big projects or the mega projects from the governments. Okay, so the knowledge management in here that I just now mentioned, we did inherit a lot of the way of doing business, the family values, and the two family values that I need to share with you during my past interview. First, that is family kinship. The other is filial piety. You can see that most of the Chinese families, they're very keen to respect to the elders. 尊师重道. Okay, in Chinese, we means that, okay, in our families, father as a main decision maker, okay, we need to respect the elderly person. The elderly person maybe can consider in the family way, they are the main decision maker, followed by the juniority and the last generations. Okay, so the stressing on the tacit knowledge innovation in the first generation, usually through the hands-on experience, apprenticeship, okay, person to person, when they transfer the knowledge, learning by doing in order to sustain the Chinese family business. So the codifying the tacit knowledge, how they're going to codify the tacit knowledge without writing down the learning way of transferring the knowledge from time to time. Yes, they will going to translate into the products, the branded products that I'm going to share with you, the 3 case studies today. Okay. My research questions in here is, we have 3. Okay, the 3 case studies here is a Baker Cottage. Okay, the second one is Amoy Canning. Okay, the third one, that is TPC, Taipei Chang Plus. Okay, the egg pottery farm. Then you can see the next slide. Okay, I came out from the research questions. How have the Malaysian Chinese family business, they have undergone the triggering events? Usually when we look at the triggering events, we check for the dictionary. Most of that will associated with a negative feelings. Okay, negative feelings, that means angriness or whatever. But my point of view is, if you undergone this kind of the triggering events from startup to the next generations, that will promise this family business, they really can remain the prominent presence in the food industry. The triggering events here is, we refer to the, for example, turbulence time, economic reception times, or the tougher working conditions, or the limited capital, okay? With this kind of the triggering event, because as a business historian, I'm pretty sure most of the historians in this floor, you will agree with one of the famous business historian from Harvard, Alfred Chandler, that make use of strategies for, structures follow strategies principle to come up with this kind of the family business or the small business, why they can evolve from the small to the big conglomerates companies. They utilize the structures follow strategies. They introduce a lot of the department in the family business from the time to time in order to keep track with the changes in the external or the internal environment or the government policy, okay, that I mentioned just now. And then the research questions too is, were the family business cycles through focusing on the families, okay, family ownership of business, a crucial factor that sustain Malaysia Chinese family business in food industry? Yes, if you based on the previous researcher that written by Gersit, that is very important to know that family ownership and business are the three key features in sustaining the business. But in the Chinese business, in the Malaysian Chinese business, in order to sustain in the long run, we still need to strongly emphasize on the tacit knowledge codifications. Tacit knowledge, how you're going to codify the tacit knowledge with the founders with a limited or the minimal educations, but he himself can't explain how to conduct the business. So they will, most of the first generation owners, they all will gather their heirs, the successor, the sons, in order to perform learning by doing in their factories. Okay, maybe during the school holidays, or maybe after school, okay, by performing the apprenticeship before to come into the companies. So in here, I come up with the new phenomenon, tacit knowledge innovations, okay, in the family business model. Okay, the tacit knowledge innovation that can tell us how to sustain the family business in Malaysian Chinese family business, in the sense that were the role of the tacit knowledge and innovation help this Chinese family business to evolve better in food industry? Yes, that's right. They will if you really codify the knowledge well, they can evolve better in the food industry. Okay, we can see the Malaysian Chinese family business in food industry based on the stage model. Okay, based on the stage model or the evolution model that written by the Johnson and Venderson Paul and Johnson and Well in 1977. Okay, so we can see that I did mention a lot from the previous slide, so I just make it simplified. Okay, the Malaysian Chinese family business in food industry from the startup time, that is a very tough environment, to the triggering events. Okay, from the triggering events, they will come up with their own business. Okay, that I relate to the petite bourgeoisie. They will come up with their own business with a little capital. So the tacit knowledge, the most important part is how to codify from the tacit, for the tacit to the explicit knowledge. The innovation here is maybe you come up with the better products or the commercialized products in order to sustain in the long run. So when these two ideas came out or intersect with each other, we can see that a lot of the changes that happen in the Chinese family business model. then bring out the evolution of the Chinese family business in food industry. Some of the Chinese family business in my case studies, they are evolved from the small capitals business. Okay, for example, the small chicken farm in order to move integrated poultry farm in Southeast Asia. Okay, from founder to the next generation is about generational change. Okay, here that is my simplified case studies, the Baker Cottage Confectionery. If you check for the previous historical assessment, so the Baker Cottage Confectionery actually came out from the Leong Hap group. Okay, they came out from the Leong Hap group. Okay, before that, they are started as a small poultry farm. Okay, small poultry farm. Okay, during 1960 in Johor. Founder was later developed into the largest integrated poultry operation in Malaysia by adopting a vertical integration strategy in 1970. Okay, in 1970, so they came out with Leong Hap poultry farming and Leong Hap contract farming. So we can see that. Okay, I just simplified the slide due to the time constraint. Okay, so they managed to produce 35,000 broiler chicken a day in Singapore. So you see this kind of the family business, they very much emphasize by using the Chinese diaspora. Why they need to establish the plants or the subsidiaries in Singapore, in Philippines, and Indonesia, and consider the Southeast Asia country? Because this kind of the three countries, they have a lot of Chinese descendants to stay in that country. So the meat, I mean the chicken consumption is quite nature in both countries. Okay, as you know, our Malaysia that is a Muslim countries, so we have our own forbidden food that is a pork. Okay, for the pork is highly forbidden for the Muslim or my Malay friends in their daily consumption. So the meat consumption, the consumption for the chicken is quite neutral to us. So you can see that they also triggered by certain events when they upgrade their they upgrade their equipment and the machinery. You can see that they started to distribute the chicken to the Ayamas or the KFC or even the McDonald's. Okay, and then this kind of Chinese family business, they know well about their competitors. They know well about their competitors, and they try to utilize the fresh resources from their parent, from the main company, in order to come up with the subsidiary country Baker Cottage to build up the confectionery retail chain in Malaysia. So the third generation was conducted the R&D in order to produce different types of pastries, and bread products. The knowledge had been adopted into the vertical integration strategy from the small chicken farming to the food processing and confectionery retail chain in Malaysia. Okay, so I just got some of the picture from the first generation, okay, of the Leong Hap group. They came up with a small chicken farm. Okay, they will by the next generation will implement the latest technology to come up with a poultry chicken farming. And for your information, poultry chicken farming and usually dominated by the Teochew dialect group. Okay, Teochew, Chaozhou in China. So we can see that. Okay, they came up with the new business, the baker's cottage. Okay, the confectionery retail chain. And during the recession time or during the COVID time, I did interview the 5th time to the current generation. They even opened another 20 to 30 outlets during the turbulence time. The reason is because they are trying to commercialize the knowledge, the tacit knowledge from farm to plate. Okay, from farm to plate, and implement the B2B, business to business platform. So you can see the first during the 2020, the turnover, they already dropped tremendously, but by the 2021, at the last year, they started to catch up the business. Okay, the other one is Amoy Canning. That is quite interesting cases. They started from the Taofa partnership business in Fujian. Okay, in Fujian, Xiamen. Okay, that is a Chinese family business. So this China business, okay, China business, they're going to hire an American Kean engineer group by giving a salary about 20 USD per month during that time, 1913, okay, to produce a soy sauce, okay, the Chinese vegetable pickles, meals, nuts, and meats in the canned food. Okay, later, this company merged with Taitong, would deal with the canned drinks and meals, and named as a Taofa Taitong Share Company with payout capital with 8,602 silver, led by the 2 CEOs and 1 managing directors. Okay, I just simplified the slide is here. During the second generations, okay, the Amoy Canning was expanding their business to Malaya. Okay, at that times, Singapore still in our country. Okay, so Singapore only achieved their independence during 1965. Okay, so they're in our Malaya state, and they start to join ventures with our Malaysian multinational companies and form up the property development. Okay, and in our Malaysians, how to say, the Malaysians subsidiaries, they are more focused into Tetra packaging drinks. Okay, Tetra packaging drinks. Okay, they call it the light brand of the Tetra packaging drinks. They're no more focused about the soft drinks. They're focused on about the tropical fruit drinks. Okay, so, and I checked with the Amoy Canning in Malaysia. This company is, when they come to the major development stage, they are already acquired by Danone. At first, Danone company, the dairy products, and the second one that is Ajinomoto. Okay, the third one now, they're back to China again. Amoy Food in Hong Kong, they're acquired by the Titan China's, one of the well-established companies in China, and they started to produce Chinese signature canned food or the paste products. Okay, so in here, the textile knowledge has been upgraded from the traditional pig food and the sources to be the Southeast Asians canned food and drinks based on the Amoy culture. So the Chinese, you can see the Chinese type of the food products that has been assimilated into the Southeast Asia flavor. Nanyang, in Chinese, Nanyang, we call it Southeast Asia. So in Imocan in Singapore, when we look at their canned food products, we notice that majority they promote curry chicken, curry mutton. Most of these products they inherited from the local Nanyang authentication or the Nanyang heritage recipe in our countries. Okay.
Okay, Professor Yu.
Yeah.
Professor Yu.
Yes.
Can you wrap up in 5 minutes?
All right. Yes, I'm going to finish. Okay, thanks for the reminder. So the third one is here is a poultry chicken farmer, the Tepin Chan. Okay, they are formed up with the Yi brothers, and as usual, they used to codify their knowledge from day to day in order to supply their egg products to the multinational companies. Okay, so they are send the kids to the Taiwan in order to study the agriculture management, to come up with a better management skill in manage the business. However, during my time, this family business already sold to the London biscuit perhaps, but the Yi brothers still advise the family business. So the knowledge in here that has been upgraded from the poultry chicken farming to the professionalized integrated poultry farmer and venture into the new business into enzyme vinegar. Okay, so this is a TBC plus. Okay, they sold up to the London biscuit, and they came up with a new business. They call it the enzyme vinegar. Okay. So when we come to the conclusion is, we see that the Malaysian Chinese family business, we undergone a different kind of the generational change. So we see that some of the Chinese family business, we really undergo a lot of the conflicts when we're going to transfer the knowledge from one generation to another. So when the family business that come to the mature stage, they will slowly get acceptance in order to make the better products, more skillful and more assimilated into our local countries, in order to get more business, or to venture into the more internationalized business in the long run. Okay, so my conclusion is, I hope my next generation will be come up the meaningful papers about how to shape the future of the Chinese family business in Southeast Asia. Thanks for listening.
Okay.